Yeah, all right. So time for the Screamin Eagle Intake Manifold. So here's the intake. I did go in and sanded out at least some of the, casting marks and stuff. I didn't really go in and polish anything, but there was some pretty substantial casting marks and burrs and stuff in here. So I did go in here and I smoothed it out. And so we're gonna give this a shot. I haven't seen the S&S version of this. I don't know if it's cast any better or not, but as far as the port sizes and stuff, everything is going to be pretty much exactly the same between the Screamin Eagle and the S&S. So, got the tank off, air cleaner housings out. So we got to we're gonna have to pull the tank, pull the throttle body, and then we can get in and get started on this. First thing you want to do is you're gonna just make sure there's no pressure in your fuel system. You can pull this connector right here, crank it till it stalls. That'll drain your fuel system of pressure. This bike I haven't started in a couple of days, so I'm not too worried about it. But we're gonna go ahead and pull the main fuse just to be safe, and we're gonna pull the tank and go ahead and get started on this one. Okay, so the first thing that's going to come off is going to be this center piece of trim here, and speedometer and everything else. So we've got a 3/8 bolt here, and there's some Allens up there, and also something else to look out for is so we've got gas tank vent tubes here. So make sure we get those unplugged first. Once the trim piece is removed, we've got 2 bolts back here that have to be removed, and then we have 2 bolts up on the neck that need to be removed. And then we'll take off the fuel hose, and the tank will be ready to lift off. All right, the next bolts we need to look at are up here on the front of the tank. So get yourself a pick or a screwdriver or something, or just use your fingers and pull off this rubber. And those bolts got to come out as well. And once the fuel line is out, the tank is ready to lift off. Okay, so before lifting your tank off, it'd be a good idea to have a piece of carpet or something set up that you can set it on without scratching anything. Okay, now the tank is off. We're going to go ahead and start disassembling some things here. So first, we've got this electronics on the existing throttle body. For those that care, this is a T30. Okay, the bolt on the bottom of the throttle body is a 5mm. Okay. There's our throttle body. Throttle body's out, so we've got some more electronics to disconnect here. This is a mass airflow sensor, I think. Okay, we're gonna disconnect the injectors, the electronics on the injectors. We're gonna pull the old manifold out as a complete unit here, with the fuel line and injectors still attached. Okay, these are a 1/4-inch drive, and they're certainly not easy to get to. So be ready to fight with them, you know. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and pull the airflow sensor here just to give us a little bit more room to work with. And it should just pretty much pull straight up and out. Okay, so I am gonna go ahead and remove the horn bracketry as well to gain access to the manifold bolts on this side. All right, so once you've got access to the rear manifold bolts, and you've got them loosened up. Now, you don't have to take them out all the way, which is excellent news because, believe me, that wasn't the most easiest thing to do in the world. So, what you'll notice is the flange is open on the inside. So, you can get them just loosened up and we should be able to pull them right out. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to lift that out of there now. With a little bit of patience and a lot of wiggling, the manifold will come out. So let's go compare this one to the new one, shall we? Yeah, all right, so looking at both of these manifolds side by side, the stock one is plastic. Screamin Eagle is aluminum. So I was a little skeptical of doing this with a 55 millimeter because everything seemed, I mean, the dimensions of everything seemed like they were exactly the same for both manifolds, you know. And what we can see here is that the Screamin Eagle is a little bit bigger even on the port side. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but the Screamin Eagle is just a little bit bigger on the port side. The other thing I noticed is that internally, the Screamin Eagle is significantly larger. Significantly larger down through the bore. I don't know, hopefully that's showing up okay on camera. But the Screamin Eagle is significantly larger through the bore. So what about the opening on the front? Roughly the same. I don't know how much more performance you actually get with this manifold. I don't know that this modification is actually worth it or not, you know? I really don't know. But what I do know is that we're doing it. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna just transfer the whole fuel rail from the old to the new. Okay, so we've got a T27. So we're going to take like a drop of assembly lube. I mean, just like a drop. We're just going to make sure our O-rings got a little bit of oil on them to help this thing go in. Another thing to know, after I did sand the burrs and stuff in the the casting marks out of this manifold, I did go ahead and wash it in the sink with just soap and water. That's something that I would definitely tell anybody else to do who's doing this. You don't want a bunch of bullshit going in your motor. I will double check the torque spec on those. I believe it should be 100 to 120 inch-pounds. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and reinstall this. I do have new O-rings and stuff. Okay, so one thing you'll notice is that these flanges are tapered inside. You can see that it's got a tapered flange is tapered. So when you're taking these apart, you got to make sure you figure out which way is the correct orientation before you take everything apart. So I got new O-rings here. I'm going to put just a very small amount of assembly lube on there. Okay, the O-ring is also tapered. It's obvious which way it goes in once you've got it in your hand. Okay, it's not hard to figure it out. You have two tapers that are going to go together, that are going to fit together, right? So that goes towards the back of the motor, and then this should go on just like that on this side. There's the old O-ring. I mean, just the smallest amount of assembly lube is all you need for these. You know, we're just trying not to tear nothing. So again, it's very obvious which way it goes, which way that fits in. And then the open part facing towards the back. Okay, and now these are ready to go on. So we'll go ahead and get these installed. When you're looking at your motor without the intake manifold on it, this is what it's going to look like. So we've got the two bolts still in the rear, which will slide into right here when we put this back together. All right, once the new manifold goes in, leave the bolts on the opposite side loose until we get the front bolts started. Getting this lined up. Fuck, I lost the O-ring. That's what'll happen. So now it's got to come all the way back out. As you're doing this, make sure your O-rings don't pop out, because otherwise you're going to be doing it again. Intake manifold on a Harley, not the easiest thing in the world to do, man. You know. Not too awful bad, but far from what I would consider to be easy. All right, so once the manifold is just sort of hands tight, you know, finger tight before you torque it down or anything, it's time to go ahead and start reassembling. Now, you should still be able to move it around like that, you know, but the map sensor needs to go back in. of wiggle it around, twist her back and forth. Should drop right in. Okay, once that's on, it's time to, this is a pretty good time to go ahead and clean the top of your heads where you can't really get to. When the gas tank is on, by the way. Good as time as any. Also, if you need new plugs, this would be a good time to do that as well, since you have really easy access to them. Okay, so moving on, we're gonna do the stock throttle body is gonna go back on. Again, this is a really good time to get in here and do some cleaning on that. One thing, this did come with a new O-ring. I gotta grab that. So this manifold does come with this O-ring. It's the only O-ring this manifold does come with, though. So you're gonna need to purchase the flange O-ring separately if you want to replace those. Okay, once the backing plate is on, we're going to bolt the air cleaner in. Yeah, okay, so once the air cleaner is bolted in, now this assembly is holding the manifold in a parallel line with our heads, right? So now that this is on, we can go ahead and do our final torque of the manifold bolts. Okay, tank can go back on at this point. Once the intake manifold is torqued down to spec. By the way, did I mention this is a hell of a lot easier to do when you don't have a full tank of gas? I don't know if I mentioned it or not. It certainly is. So we'll get the tank bolted in, and we'll get the gas line hooked back up, and we'll see if she runs with all the work that I've done. Okay, vent tube goes back, and then the instrument cluster is going to go back. Yeah, so here we are. I put about 100 miles on the bike today. That intake manifold is 100% worth it. 100% worth it. I don't know if it would be worth it with the stock cam, but with the aftermarket cam, it is absolutely worth the effort to put that in. The bike has so much more power now. This thing is like a whole different machine. It is absolutely fun to ride. If you have a cam, do the intake. That's what I'm going to say. Okay? It's weird talking about the intake, when you can't see it, But it's in there. I promise you that. It's definitely in there. And 100% worth the upgrade. So, okay, have a nice day. I will be doing a video on the cam installation
But that one's going to take a lot longer to edit. So we did the cam, and then we put about 100 miles on the bike, and then we went ahead and did the intake manifold, and we did another 100-mile ride. So just with the cam, power was improved. I think it's the combination of the cam plus intake manifold that, okay, so look, when I did the cam, you know, I thought I was a little bit disappointed. You know, it was a little disappointing. It definitely had more power, but I thought it should have more, you know, but, with the cam and the intake manifold, it's about where I would say I thought it was going to be with the cam. Okay. So, this is it's a great combination. I think it works well. And, if you have a cam, you definitely want to go ahead and do the intake as well. Okay. Have a nice day.